Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Hassan, and I'm honored and delighted to have a colleague and friend for many, many years, Douglas Brooks. Thank you, Doug, for agreeing to do this podcast and this interview in 2022 with me. We go back many years. You're an attorney, and your specialization is litigating against multi-level marketing pyramid schemes and cultish groups. You've been featured in Betting on Zero, the Herbalife documentary that's online. You also helped against the Nexium consumer byline scam of Keith Raniere, who's now in jail for 120 years for trafficking. Um, and you are tireless in wanting to educate and help raise up a consciousness about frauds and schemes and mind control cults, but in this area known as MLMs or pyramid schemes. Um, you're here in the Massachusetts area with me. You've come to help talk with my former Congressman Barney Frank, with Robert Fitzpatrick, who came up. We did an interview there. Unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere. And you've really done a much deeper dive than anyone else that I'm aware of, especially an attorney, about cults and mind control. And you were an instrumental organizer in the first two-day global conference against multi-level marketing groups, which is on MLMconference.com to this day. And I was one of the speakers there, as you were, of course, as well. And there's a new conference being planned for June 10th and 11th, I believe. We're going to talk about that too. And what else do I want to say about you? You're a good guy. You have integrity. You care about people, and you don't like corporations, elite business people who know that they're defrauding people by saying they can become millionaires part-time, and in fact 99 point whatever lose money, and they alienate their family and friends because they pressure them all the time to recruit them. I'm done with your intro, but please, Douglas, we have a large audience around the world now. So first define, what do we mean when we say a multi-level marketing group, and why is it a problem?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Steve, for having me on your podcast, and also for that blushingly beautiful introduction. Um, I appreciate, and I should say that your work in this area is so incredibly important, and there are a lot of people in the MLM world, former participants, who have really been helped by you directly and indirectly. And I don't know how often, you may not even be aware of how often I hear the bite model being mentioned, but there are many recovering MLM people out there who have relied on your work
No,
to
thank you.
help them get through it. So,
Yeah, and it's so weird, but when I got out of the Moonies 46 years ago, I had ex-Moonies try to recruit me into MLMs. And they were like, "I have a business opportunity for you." And I'm like,
yeah.
"Tell me about it." "Oh, I can't. I need to do a presentation." I'm like, "No, tell me about it first."
Yeah,
And
there's a lot of crossover among the different scams that and undue influence
yeah.
cults that there's been a crossover from the beginning, really.
Yep.
And so there's,
Yep.
in fact, one of our speakers, at least one of our speakers at the upcoming conference, is going to try to address at least part of that issue and sort of the whole infrastructure of scam artists and
Wonderful. And I noticed you have Roberta Blevins speaking as well,
yep.
who was in, was it Lulu
LuLaRoe.
Rich? Lulu
LuLaRoe.
Rowe.
Yeah.
And there was a documentary that she was featured in. I interviewed her. as well. But let's not assume people understand
Yeah.
what is an MLM, what is a pyramid scheme, and why is it a problem?
Well, let me, there's actually three terms to understand what they mean.
Great.
And the industry is sort of good at mixing these up. But the first term is direct selling.
Mm-hmm.
Direct selling is simply person to person selling, not at a fixed retail location. So,
Okay.
for instance, the door to door salesman, the old Yankee peddler going from town to town, um, anyone who's selling something, but they don't have a brick and mortar store.
Okay.
That's
That's
direct
helpful.
selling. And there's nothing wrong with direct selling. It is
Mm-hmm.
as American as apple pie. It's been part of humanity for, from the get-go.
Yep. I
But the one,
remember encyclopedia salesman and vacuum cleaner salesman
absolutely,
knocking
yeah,
on the door.
yeah.
But that's kosher.
That is
That's
absolutely kosher. I mean, that is not to say that there aren't abuses there, but the basic form of doing business, there's nothing wrong with it.
okay, great.
Multi-level marketing is a system that they like to refer to themselves as direct sellers, and the model is supposedly that you can make money both by direct selling, but also by recruiting other people to sell whatever the stuff is.
Mm-hmm.
And when those people buy something from the company, you will get paid a commission. And those people that you recruit, if they recruit someone and that person buys something from the company, you'll get a commission there too. And that will go on and on and on down um, as many levels as get recruited.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have this situation where some people make a tremendous amount of money at this.
At
But
the
the
top of the
at the
pyramid.
top, at the top of the pyramid,
Right.
but the vast majority, it's somewhere between 97 and 99 point something percent uh, lose.
Mm-hmm.
And it's inevitable that they're going to lose. It's built into the system. The
Mm-hmm.
system requires losers in order that there may be winners. It's
Mm-hmm.
sort of like a lottery, except it's like a lottery, only you're buying a ticket for the lottery that happened last week. Um, and it's something that I actually said this in Betting on Zero. When you join an MLM, it's like buying a lottery ticket for last week's lottery. The winners have already been selected. You're just putting your money down a pit. Now, the other term is pyramid scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And in the context of multi-level marketing, the Federal Trade Commission has said that a pyramid scheme is a situation where you have to pay something in order to participate,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be buying inventory or making some other kinds of payments to the company.
Mm-hmm.
And in exchange for that, you get the right to not only to sell the product, but to recruit people. And the key thing is you get the right to get paid commissions uh, that are not related to bona fide retail sales. Not, in other words, you get a commission when someone buys something, whether or not they actually sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Federal Trade Commission has said, we're going to let these things exist provided that there are truly retail sales going on at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So they could have, and this happened back in the 70s in a series of cases that they brought. They decided, okay, this is a problematic form of doing business, but we're going to let it continue provided that there really are retail sales, that people really are buying the product because they want it.
Mm-hmm.
And what we see over and over again with MLM is that, yes, there are products and the distributors are buying those products, but they're not selling them profitably. maybe they'll sell to their cousin or their best friend for a
Mm-hmm.
few months. Maybe they'll use some themselves. They're selling vitamins or makeup or water
Clothing.
filters or clothing like
Mm-hmm.
LuLaRoe. Um, but the 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 actual retail sales that happen it's very minimal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the money and the people that get up on the stage and talk about all the money that they're making, if you look at how they make their money, it's always by recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
The big money makers are always the big recruiters. The,
Right.
those are
And
the people that make the money, and they are the 1%.
yeah,
Um,
and I just want to say the first group that really was on my radar screen back to the 70s was Amway.
yeah,
And,
Amway is the great granddaddy of every MLM that exists today.
yeah, and
They
Amway
really
has
started it.
been slapped on the hand and given hundreds of millions of dollars of fines, but they're making so much more money that they keep on doing a
Yeah.
version of what they're doing, right?
Yeah, Amway, in fact, just recently, the country of India shut them down. Now, I don't know if that's going to stick. This has been totally not reported in the media in this country,
Right.
but and we're still trying to figure out exactly what the legal status is. But the initial report that we got was devastating to
Right.
Amway, saying this is a scam where no retail sales are really taking place. It's ripping people off, and the authorities in India were going to
Yeah, so
shut it
this
down.
brings up another point. I want to circle back, but just the point that when cults are exposed in a particular country, they often will change their name, do a rebranding, but they'll also go to other countries and where the media exposure and the legal liability is not known, so they have fresh meat to
Yeah,
recruit, quote unquote. So this is a global problem. We know it's happening through Facebook big time in many, many other countries. So, and that's why this global MLM conference is happening
yeah.
because it is a worldwide problem. And I do want to also tell our listeners that I learned something new from the last 2 day conference. I've been, listening and learning all along, but the big thing that I learned for the first time was that the statistics are 75% are women who get sucked into MLM cults.
Yeah.
And you've heard me, but I'll just repeat for our listeners. I think of things on an influence continuum from ethical to unethical. And I talk about cults existing on that influence. Productive cults can be with informed consent and conscience, and you can talk to critics and former members, and you can leave without fear or threats. But why I characterize MLM groups as cults is if they're authoritarian, they're using the deceptive recruitment, selling the dream, and making people invest large amounts of money in books and tapes, going to conferences,
Yeah.
but there's so much parallelism with people who get sucked into an MLM because they become zealous proselytizers to all their family and friends that make money off of them essentially. And at a certain point, family and friends stop being polite and say, "Stop pestering me." And the cult tells these, believers, these are dream stealers. Don't talk to your family anymore if they're not supporting your quest to be an independent business person. Like,
Yeah.
riff with me about an independent business person from all the victims you've interviewed over the decades.
Well, I mean, before I even filed my first MLM case, my specialty was franchising and distribution law. I
Aha.
represented franchisees and distributors all over the country. And by distributors, I mean in traditional distribution
Like
situations.
McDonald's or Burger King
Absolutely.
franchises. Okay.
And with, for instance, if you represent a McDonald's franchisee, you'll find out that they don't really mind if a Burger King locates nearby them. What
Hmm.
really bothers them is if another McDonald's is located too close to them.
Uh-huh.
And we call that in the trade cannibalization. That's when one franchise in a chain is located too close to another one, and it takes away the sales that the first one was enjoying.
Hmm.
And the the um, the the companies, McDonald's knows that they can't build a McDonald's on every street corner. They need franchisees who have viable businesses.
Right.
And the franchisees know, on the other hand, there needs to be other McDonald's out there because it helps them. There's a network effect.
Right.
The more McDonald's there are out there, the more name recognition they have, the more, so there's this, but there's
And
this
the
sort of,
advertising budget,
absolutely.
nationally is important, right?
But it matters how many, it matters how
Hmm.
congested the market is.
Got
With
it.
multi-level marketing, you've got distributors who are recruiting other distributors who are going to be their competitors.
Uh-huh.
You're supposedly in the business of selling, facial goop,
Yep.
but you're recruiting other people that are going to be selling the same stuff to the
Hmm.
same market at the same price. How are you going to compete with those people? What you find out is that the only way of making money with MLM is by recruiting.
Hmm.
And the only way to be successful at recruiting is to be one of the first ones in your market area.
Yep.
Um, but you raise the issue of the global reach of this, and
Yep.
you're absolutely right. And what happened is the business model started in the United States. I mean, it's one of our worst exports to the world
Hmm.
is this form of doing business. But what the MLM companies discovered is that in order to keep on expanding, they had to keep on finding new markets because
Right.
once they've strip mined one area in the U.S., then they need to move on to somewhere else.
Hmm.
And probably in about the late 80s, early 90s, that's when a lot of the bigger, older MLMs started to expand worldwide. And
Hmm.
now we have this situation where the bigger MLMs, they're in almost every country in the world,
Hmm.
and including third world countries where
Yeah.
people can barely afford anything.
Right.
And here is Amway or New Skin or Herbalife telling them this is the American way. This is the
Right.
way to participate in capitalist democracy, and this is freedom. And it's a lie.
Right.
It is a total abuse of the trust that the United States businesses should have worldwide because
Right.
we are a leader, and it's important for everyone on the planet to understand what is going on with these companies.
Right. So, do you have any numbers of how many people have been taken in by MLMs?
I would estimate, I mean, in the United States, the Direct Selling Association, which is the lobbying organization for the MLM industry. Now, they call themselves Direct Selling Association, but really it's MLM.
Right.
They used to represent mostly direct sellers, but there are so few direct sellers left these days.
Right.
So they so what they say is I think it's about 17 or 18 million people a year. But they don't say is how many of those people drop out. And they played some games with numbers. They that number 15, 16, 17 million, something like that. But now they're saying, well, a lot of those people are really, they're just customers. They're just people who want to buy, they want to join the MLM to get the discount because they love the product so much.
Hmm.
They just want to get the discount.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe the number of distributors is only, say, 5 or 6 million.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't believe them. I don't think they're a reliable source of information.
Right.
I think a lot of those people, uh, the reason that they don't have downlines is they just haven't succeeded at it, and
Right.
they don't behave like loyal customers. You know, the attrition rates for MLMs are 80 or 90% dropout every year.
Right.
I've actually seen some companies where the attrition rate is 100%.
Right.
They have to recruit as many people as join because so many people drop out each year.
Right. But I wanna urge our listeners, think back. Were you ever involved with an MLM? Did you ever go to a pitch meeting where they refused to tell you what it was about, but it turned out to be a business opportunity and you needed to typically pony up some money to buy some product, etc.? Know somebody in your family or friends who've gotten into this? Because there are millions and millions of people who've been lied to, like I was, by a Mooney recruiters, and got indoctrinated into this whole bubble of totalist belief until I got rescued. And I've actually been hired by families to help loved ones who've lost marriages, dropped out of college, used up all their savings, and who had mental health problems as a result of it. Because the system, as all cults, destructive cults do, is they make you believe there's something wrong with you. And, like everyone else is successful. What's wrong with you, Steve? Is there a part of you that's sabotaging your success, or you're allowing your negative thoughts? You have to believe 100% and then it will magically come true. And then they quote The Secret or the law of positive attraction or some
Yeah.
other nonsense of, you know, think it and you fake it and you make it kind of mentality. Um, and, uh, and it's devastating for people when they come out to realize, I just wasted a year or 2 years. I burned a lot of bridges with people. I'm in debt. A lot of people have to declare bankruptcy and they have to stick their tail between their legs like I did when I realized Moon wasn't the Messiah. But you know what? There's life after cult. And I'm really trying to encourage everyone to get over the stigma, that exists.
Yeah.
We're human beings. We can be lied to. We can trust the wrong people. And we're coming into a situation now where we're faced with people who are believing lies but thinking it's the truth, and this black and white, all or nothing, good versus evil mindset. And the world is much more complex than that. But we need laws to protect the public against criminal behavior. And I think you, Douglas, you've seen the results, the painful results, as have I, of people who've been harmed by this group. But I want to come back to the Direct Sellers Association because they're spending millions of dollars lobbying our politicians to not have regulation and enforcement policies in place. We had Betsy DeVos, who is the Secretary of Education in the 45th presidency, and she made her money off of Amway, as her brother Eric Prince did as well. And Trump himself had multi-level marketing groups that he had to pay millions of dollars because there was fraudulent advertising and such.
He's
So
being sued now
he's being
by
sued.
he was a spokesmodel for an MLM called ACN, and there is a pending lawsuit in the Southern District of New York against Trump and the Trump organization and several of his children, I believe, on behalf of distributors in ACN who claim that they wouldn't have joined if Trump hadn't talked about what a great opportunity this was. And of course, it wasn't. It was another MLM scam where the
Right,
vast majority of people lose money.
right.
But it's so important what you said, Steve, because and first of all, let me mention the approach that you described, where you're not really told what it is that you're talking about, it's actually called the curiosity approach, and it
Mm-hmm.
was pioneered by Amway, and
Mm-hmm.
it's still in use to this day. You're not told that this is an MLM. You're not even told the name of the company.
Right.
They want to sort of get you to a meeting before you even know what you're in for.
Right.
And then at this meeting, you've got this whole room full of people that are excited, and they're clapping, and they're standing on their chairs, and they're so excited, and they're really nice to you.
Yeah.
They're just totally,
A lot of love bombing.
yep.
Join the family.
Oh, and you're so lucky, and you're just getting in on the ground floor, and this is the wave of the future, and this is the best business opportunity, and look at these people on the stage. They're so wealthy, and they've been so successful. It just goes on and on like that, and I've seen it over and over again.
Yeah,
It's
the
incredible.
dream. They sell the fantasy
Yeah,
that you're going to be retired with a yacht
yeah,
and multiple luxury cars, and it exists for the very top
yeah,
minutia percentile, but not everybody else. I want to make sure that you share with our listeners the FTC was asking for public
yes,
comments. Talk to us about that, and I want to especially talk about
yeah,
what citizens can do now.
absolutely.
Great.
Um, in the United States, the government agency that has the jurisdiction, the primary jurisdiction over things like MLM, is the Federal Trade Commission.
Yep.
The Federal Trade Commission is supposed to protect consumers from unfair or deceptive practices
Mm-hmm.
by businesses.
Yep.
Um, and for instance, back in the 70s, the FTC developed a rule regarding franchising, where they said if you're going to buy a franchise, the franchisor has to give you a disclosure statement before you pay any money, before you sign anything. You have to get a disclosure statement that has all sorts of information about the opportunity: who is selling it, how much is it going to cost, what are the terms of the deal, um, what are the success rates of other people that are in it. Really, and these documents are very thick. They're like telephone books full
Hmm.
of every piece of information you could possibly want to know about a franchise that you might buy.
Hmm.
But MLMs would be covered by that rule, except that there was one part of the definition that says you're only a franchise if you have to pay $500 within the first 6 months of operation. So you look at MLMs, and all of their starter fees are below $500. And that's
Interesting.
the only required fee, is that starter fee. Anything else they say is optional. You don't have to buy inventory. Um, so they get around, they got away from being subject to the franchise rule. Then in the late 90s, the FTC said, well, we really need a rule regarding business opportunities other than franchises.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it won't be quite as extensive as the franchise rule, but we do need some disclosures, and we need to protect people from unfair, deceptive earnings claims.
Yep.
So they developed a business opportunity rule that
Mm-hmm.
was going to cover MLMs.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, the industry mustered its lobbying power.
Mm-hmm.
They flooded the FTC with 15,000 sort of cookie cutter form letters. They had
Yep.
distributors sign a form letter, send it to the FTC, and they just they had mail bags full of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And they also got 80 congressmen to send letters to the FTC saying, don't harm our industry. Of course, what we're talking about here is pre-sale disclosures with a waiting period before you buy, a 7-day waiting period. Now, we have to, why would that harm a legitimate business, to
Right.
have to give true information about your business and to have people wait 7 days before they actually pay anything? but as far as the industry was concerned, this was going to destroy them. And they got their lobbying people in gear. They got 80 congressmen to send letters, and the FTC said, okay, we will exempt MLM from the rule. So, but we now have a business opportunity rule that covers every type of business opportunity except for MLM. MLM is the only business opportunity in the United States that is not subject to a nationwide disclosure rule. That is the power of lobbying.
Yeah, so let me just
Now,
state it, if I may.
yeah,
So these groups are criminal, in my opinion, because they're lying and exploiting human beings to do basically a version of labor trafficking, from my way of thinking about it. And because they've spent millions and millions in lobbying fees and donations to politicians, they have, corrupted our legal system to in terms of in their failure to support and protect American citizens. Did I get that right?
I would say that's probably not, that is absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna dispute anything there. But if I can continue the
Yes,
story,
please, please.
because it totally relates to what you just said.
Great.
The last March of this year, the FTC again started the process of developing a regulation that would cover MLMs. And
Yeah,
this
this
is a
is
reg
2022,
this is
March of
2020, March of
2022.
2022.
Yep.
The FTC said we need to have a rule regarding deceptive earnings claims. And they
Yep.
pointed to, there's a number of different areas where earnings claims get made. The coaching businesses,
Yep.
mentoring businesses, uh, for-profit education, uh, uh, gig work like Uber and Lyft
Mm-hmm.
and work at home schemes, and MLM.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there's a sort of a tedious process that the FTC has to go through before they can't just initiate a regulation. They've got to go through this process. And the first step is for them to make this announcement. We're thinking of developing a rule in this area that would do these things.
Yep.
That opens a period of public comment for the people to say, for the public can say,
Right.
we need a rule, we don't need a rule, we need a rule, and this is what it should say.
Right. And too
Um,
bad this will air after the period is closed for public comments, but I assume there are things people can still do to make
there
their voices
absolutely
heard.
are. There will be another opportunity. If the FTC decides that it will go forward with a rule, there'll be another period for public comment. But the key thing that you can do if you are a victim, or you have a friend or a family member who was a victim of MLM, write your congressman.
Mm-hmm.
Go to your senator, go to your representative, and say, this form of business has harmed me, harmed my family. It is essentially unregulated. What happens is the FTC, every once in a while, they'll bring an action against a particular company,
Yep.
but which is great if you were in that company. But there are 700, or maybe even 800 MLMs at any given moment. The
Wow.
FTC doesn't have the manpower to go after all of them.
Right.
So there needs to be a regulation. You need to, you need to give the FTC the funds, the ability to protect consumers. So
Exactly.
absolutely, go to your congressman and tell them that something needs to be done about this. And tell your story.
So, Douglas, we're going to do a blog based on this interview, and we'll put links in it, including, and we'll ask your help to get a list of all the congressmen that sent letters in supporting
Yeah,
MLMs, so people can know whether their congressperson is on the dole or has been, pressured
yeah.
through lobbying. Um, but also you can go to your neighborhood and start a petition and then submit a list of 5,000, 10,000 people.
Yeah.
I also I don't want to forget this point because it's very, very important, and that is social media. And many of the people that I worked with said that when they were first being recruited, they went online and Googled this group, and there was no negatives up
Yeah.
there. And what I came to learn is that there was deliberate sabotage of the search engine algorithms to put all the keywords, Amway plus cult plus scam plus brainwashing,
Yeah.
etc., so that it's on the 10th page of Google,
Yeah.
not the first, second, or third, which is where most citizens stop looking after the first page or the second or the third. But they're out there. And then there are portals of trustworthy people like yourself, like Robert Fitzpatrick, William Keep. There are people who have resources online where people can learn and understand. I've always said to people when they said I'm gonna just check it out. I'm not gonna spend my life in it if I don't make money. I say, did you ask to see the tax returns for the last 3 years of your recruiter when he's saying that he's made six figures? Oh, he won't share it with me. Red light,
Yeah.
warning, warning, or if you're going to do it, make a deadline in your mind. I'll do it for 6 months, and if I don't make $3,000, in
Yeah.
6 months, I'm done. So you don't keep getting, you get like a fish with a hook. They keep reeling you in, and a lot of it is not only about deception, but that you're not allowed to say critical things to anyone else other than your upline, right?
Yeah.
In this pyramid thing.
Some of these companies even have non-disparagement clauses in their contracts, which say, you can't even criticize the company. You can't, and you can't, you certainly can't go on social media and talk about your bad experience, even after you've left the company. They'll sue you.
Yeah,
And
and
there
I'm
are,
seeing this
yeah,
horrible abuse of the legal system where cults like Scientology even have NDAs where members are pressured they have to agree to binding arbitration and not go to the courts.
yeah,
And a judge recently in California with women who had alleged that they had been raped by Danny Masterson got a positive ruling by a judge that
yeah,
they have the right to be heard, and this agreement was signed under context of undue influence or
yeah,
a version of that, I believe.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, that raises a whole new issue, which maybe we can't deal with. But when people get into these things, they sign these contracts, and they're not told. First of all, the contract, the thing they might sign, it might be 1 or 2 pages long, but what they don't realize is that there's one clause that says all of the policies and procedures of the company are incorporated into this thing. Then you look at the policies and procedures, and they're 100 pages long, 150 pages long. And they include all sorts of, class action waivers, arbitration clauses, non-disparagement clauses, covenants not to compete, covenants not to recruit into other people into other MLMs. You can't even the people that, and a trade secret provision that will say that even the people that you've recruited, that customer list becomes the property of the company, uh, which,
So, what you're bringing up is so important, and I want to just state categorically in my life experience if something is legitimate, it will stand up to scrutiny. Treat your mind and your body and your time and your social network as something really valuable.
yeah,
And if somebody's telling you to sign a contract, have a lawyer look at it.
yeah,
Have somebody, it's worth investing a little bit. Maybe you have a lawyer in the family, and there are lawyers like Doug, you've been giving
yeah,
talks. There's free information out there. But I have a
But
lawyer, and I get
just to protect myself, I'm not, yeah, I'm not looking for business. I want to make that clear. I'm
don't contact
semi-retired and
Doug. He's not looking for business, but he's a fountain of knowledge and networks of other people who are able to invest the time and energy to review contracts. And if you, and I also want to just comment. So I know Anthony Pratkanis, who's a social psychologist. He was the editor of a journal called Influence. He's one of the top experts in the world on the issue of influence. And he was telling me about an expert witness gig that he did, exactly what you were saying, that there's this disclosure that's 100 pages long. And is it reasonable to a judge that a person who's a lay person can read this and understand what they're signing? And he said no. And the judge agreed. I
yeah,
forget if it was a Comcast case or some telecommunications case.
yeah.
But if something's legitimate, it should stand up to scrutiny. And if it's legitimate, they should tell you up front who they are, what they believe, and what to expect of them. There should be an exit if you don't like it without fear, threats, or you're a loser. You're going to get a job. You know, they try to make it sound like having a job is a curse or a weakness,
Yeah.
you know. But you know, be in control of your own mind and body, and again, think of yourself as a valued human being. And and I'll add, I think Utah is the multi-level marketing capital of the United States. Is that true still?
Certainly, one of them. I mean, Florida and Texas are big, but probably is the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a colleague who passed away a couple of years ago, John Taylor, his
Right.
website is still
He's Mormon, I
available.
believe, right?
He was a devout Mormon,
Mm-hmm.
and he wrote a book when he realized that it seemed to him
Right.
that Mormons were particularly vulnerable to
Right.
these things, and he felt maybe part of it is the trust in other people
Yeah.
that Mormons try to instill to try to favor,
Yeah.
and also that there are, the Mormons are very outreaching. They wanna
Sure.
tell people about their religion, and he felt that some of the MLM recruiters were using techniques that they had developed uh, in their missionary work
Right.
to recruit people into MLMs, and
Right.
he was very troubled by this,
Yep.
and I think. And as I say, he was a devout Mormon until the day he died. There's no question about that. But I think he was
Yeah.
very, he was not a, he rubbed some people the wrong way in Utah because
Mm-hmm.
some of the high level MLM people there are very high up in the church as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that, and then there's boundary issues, ethical boundary issues. But I would also say, because that piece of data was so insightful for me, that 75% are women. It seems to me that if you're in a religious group where men have all the power and women are relegated to the home and childbearing and such, and the kids grow up, the women, the idea of having an income where they have their own business is very appealing.
100%. That's absolutely true. The MLMs in general are very opportunistic. They want to recruit where people are vulnerable, people who are maybe out of work, people who are underemployed, people who are worried about being laid
Right.
off, and women who want to be able to work at home and add, supplement their family's income. And it
Right.
sounds like a great thing. Here's a business that you can run out of your home, and you can make a little extra money, or maybe even a lot of money. Uh, but then you find out that not only are you not making money, you're paying money.
Right.
In order to participate in this thing, you've got to keep on buying stuff.
Right.
even though, like I mentioned, those starter kits that are less than $500. But what you find out is that the real money is these monthly purchase qualifications that you have to keep on buying to stay active, to rise in the plan, or even to maintain your position.
Right.
And over and over again, I hear people say, I kept on buying stuff because my upline told me this is the way to be successful.
Right.
And that's, the people, they think, well, this is, I'm only paying $100 for a starter kit. This isn't a big deal. I can do this. But then they sort of get hooked in.
Right.
And there's something called the sunk cost fallacy, which means, you once you make some investment in something, even a small thing, you want to protect it. So
Right.
you make another investment and
Right.
then another investment, and it makes it that much more difficult to
I
break
had
away.
that happen to me yesterday, Doug. I was at the post office. I've been trying to mail some books out since
Yeah.
Friday, and today, yesterday it was Wednesday, and I kept going, and there was a long line, and the machine to mail packages was broken, and I waited on the line thinking, okay, there's 8 people in front of me, but, I'll just be here for a half an hour. And I'm there for 20 minutes. And they did 2 out of the 8 clients ahead of me. And I'm like, wait a minute, sunk cost fallacy on 20 minutes. I have a
Yep.
call to make in 10 minutes, a business call. And it makes no sense for me to keep waiting because I'm going to be here for an hour.
Yep.
So that critical thinking piece popped in like 20 minutes. You never would have thought you were going to wait that long to mail the package. But what I'm trying to say is it happens to the best of us that
Yeah.
we invest and then we just think a little longer, a little longer, a little longer.
Yeah.
So that's really important. But I guess I also want to just comment that we need we need to create a legal system that's fair and just. And if wealthy people who are exploiting and abusing people can influence politicians, can make regulations that help them to keep hurting people,
Yeah.
this does not make sense.
Along those lines, I should mention that in this latest public comment period that
Mm-hmm.
the FTC that just closed, just this morning, I saw that there was a letter from 4 senators to the FTC saying essentially, don't harm the MLM industry, that the MLM industry does so much good and it creates these opportunities. And if you I mean, essentially what they're saying without coming out, they're saying if you don't let us make deceptive earnings claims, we won't have a viable business. And and because that's all the FTC has said is we need to do something about deceptive earnings claims. And
Right.
here are these 4 senators, and I'll name them here. Here's
Please.
saying we're worried that you're going to do too much, that you're going to harm these businesses, and the evidence of deceptive earnings claims is overwhelming.
Right.
All of these companies do it, and they make these outrageous claims. You're going to be rich, you're going to make
Right.
5,000 a month, 10,000 a month, and really what we're talking about is a fraction of 1% that make the real money. Most people lose, most people
So
drop
please,
out.
can you read
So
off the
the
senators?
4 senators, the first one is Marsha Blackburn,
Hmm.
who, when she was a representative, she was a staunch friend of the MLM industry, and now that she's a senator, it looks like she's going to continue this.
Hmm.
Cynthia Lummis, Michael Lee, and Mike Braun.
Hmm.
So
And were
those
there
are
any
the
senators saying we need regulations? Please do it.
none. None that I've seen so far. And,
Right.
I've been knocking on doors, but there is no congressman that I'm aware of that has sort of taken on this project, even though there are, because of social media, there are a lot more people out there who have found each other than they were able to do, 20 or 30 years ago when I started doing this work.
Hmm.
Um, there are whole YouTube channels, dozens, scores of YouTube channels that are devoted to what's being called the anti-MLM
The
movement.
anti-MLMs, right?
There are a lot of people out there who are, yeah, and so they are findable, and they are increasingly active, and they're finding each other. It used to be if you were an MLM and you failed, you decided I just can't pay any more money. You were trained before this happened. You were trained to think it's your own fault.
Yeah,
You
there's
didn't
no such thing as a victim. This is
right.
part of the indoctrination of large group awareness trainings and MLMs.
Absolutely, it's the same. It's the same thing. So if you failed at it, it's your own fault. You didn't follow the plan. You're
Right.
you're a bad salesman, whatever it is. And so I spoke, and this is going back to the '90s. I spoke with so many people who they were actually gratified to find out that there were other
Yeah, it
victims.
wasn't them. They're
Yeah.
not alone.
Now it's a lot easier to find, and even though you're absolutely right about the search engine optimization techniques that the companies use,
Yep.
but it is also much, much easier to find other people who've been victimized by the MLM that you were involved in.
Yep, I can state categorically that we're having a bit of a positive moment in the world of cult awareness because there's a lot of documentaries that are now being done. There's a lot more media, a lot more people are speaking up. The case against Nexium was huge in terms of and Sarah and Nippy have a podcast a little bit culty, for example, where they've gone on from their own cult experience to interview people about MLMs. I do want to make one more point that I'm not sure we were clear enough on, which is the whole secret industry within the MLM of
Yeah,
selling tapes and books and conferences
yeah,
with the pledge that if you do this, it will teach you how to be the successful salesperson. Some of the tapes for that I've listened to are very hypnotic
yeah,
in terms of programming. Some of them are religious, where they have a religious agenda, and you got to pray to God, and God will help you be successful. And so people who maybe start out atheist or getting drawn into a
yeah.
religious agenda as well. And and I also want to say that some of the big groups, the Herbalifes, the Amways, would have these big convention-like meetings and pay large sums of money to famous people to come and give speeches. They don't. The people who come aren't into MLMs. They just want to get a big paycheck for an hour, show up. But it gives the illusion of credibility and
Absolutely right.
I don't know if I'm correct in my memory, but I seem to remember even Madeleine Albright doing something to
She
promote an MLM because she
she
was getting
was.
paid. So I want to just come back, if I may, to the June 10th and 11th, 2022 uh, global conference that's being set up. People can go to mlmconference.com for more information, Doug, if they want to sign up.
Absolutely. You'll also find all of the programs that were at last year's conference,
The
including the one
actual
that,
videos to
yeah,
last year's conference,
yeah,
right? But you can see the list of who's going to speak this year. I think I'm speaking on the second day as
yes.
I did the first day. But can you share some of the people who may be speaking in June that are
Um,
slated?
yes. Well, we're very happy that Bonnie Patton from the group Truth in Advertising .org is going to be giving the keynote.
Great.
Um, and I'm not allowed to say the topic of her address, but I think it's going to be extremely important and
What's the
interesting.
organization she does?
She has the organization is called Truth in Advertising. It's
Great. .org.
truthinadvertising.org,
Great.
and they do fantastic work on uncovering false advertising,
Yeah,
not
false
just in,
claims.
yeah, not just, in a wide range of businesses, but they have taken a special interest in MLM. They have put together a lot of materials on MLM. They did a study a couple of years ago of deceptive earnings claims by MLM companies, and they
Hmm.
looked at just the members of the Direct Selling Association. So these are the elite
Right,
MLM companies.
right.
They found 97% of them were making deceptive earnings claims
Hmm.
under FTC standards.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they looked at thousands of claims in order to come up with this study. They just do very thorough,
That's
good
great.
work.
So
Um,
and William Keep, is he still helping to organize it? Let's tell us a little bit about William's
Bill,
work.
Bill is actually, I'd say, the primary
Okay.
organizer of the group. In fact, his college, he is a professor of marketing at the College of New Jersey School of Business.
Mm-hmm.
They have agreed again to sponsor the conference.
Great.
And again, we're a group with absolutely no money, no funds.
Right.
It's just an ad hoc group of people who are interested in this topic.
Yep.
But Bill's college is hosting us,
Great.
and Bill, together with his co-author Peter Vandernat, who was formerly an economist at the Federal Trade Commission, they've written two of the key papers, the academic papers on MLM. One is
Mm.
on analyzing the structure of these companies, and the other is basically the history of the industry.
Great.
So Bill will be speaking. Stacy Bosley, who is another a wonderful member of the group. She is an economist at Hamline University in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she will be speaking, and she's done some really interesting studies on MLM, doing experiments in the field,
Mm.
giving people sort of prototypical MLM disclosures and trying and testing to see what the effect of these disclosures
Oh, that's
is.
great.
Really, really interesting stuff.
It's really
Um,
great.
we,
And I know there'll be victims, former
yeah,
members
your
of
your
MLMs.
program, I think, is going to attract a lot of attention. A lot of people are interested in the topic of, so how do you recover from this from being in an MLM? And yes, we will have several victims. I know a lot of people want to hear from you. We have Dr. Janja Lalich.
Yanya Lalich is
Yeah,
also
yeah.
speaking, which is
Sorry to
great.
mispronounce her name.
It's
Um,
okay. She deals
but
with it all the time. People mispronounce my name all the time too. Yanya is a retired a professor of sociology, and was in a left-wing political cult for 10 years, which is how she got interested before she became a scholar, and has written numerous good books, including Take Back Your Life with Maddie Tobias. So that's really great too. And I just really want to implore, if you're listening to this and you're a member of the media, to do what you can. If you're too busy working on a different topic, but listening to this interview, find someone in your organization and talk to the editors or the producers and try to cover the June 10th and 11th thing, because we need more public awareness about what is mind control, what is this bite model, this behavior, information, thought, and emotional control. It really exists. It really affects human beings, and it can turn us away from our core values and people that we love into this bubble of toxic belief and practice.
before I left, you had raised the issue of sort of the celebrities that these companies bring in.
Oh,
You mentioned
please.
Madeleine Albright. She became a spokesperson for Herbalife. I was
Oh.
very disappointed when that happened, but Herbalife paid her millions of dollars,
Mm-hmm.
and she 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 would go on stage and talk about how wonderful Herbalife was. And I don't think she really understood the depth of the harm that
I've
Herbalife
met
has
her
caused.
in a Countering ISIS meeting. I have no sense that she was desperate to make money. I think that she was probably going to donate the money to some philanthropic effort. But everyone who is somebody has to do their due diligence to research an opportunity to make a lot of money. And I can't help but mention people like Matt Damon and LeBron James hawking cryptocurrency. I really question that they know anything about the underbelly of cryptocurrency, which to me seems like an MLM, where somebody's at the top who's a billionaire and they sell a dream of making a fortune. The early adopters make money, but everyone else gets sucked in, and then it's all going to go up in smoke, is my prediction.
By the way, we are going to have a representative from the Federal Trade Commission at one of our programs, and she's going to be talking about crypto.
Oh, um,
In connection with MLM, because
very
there are
interested.
MLMs that have sort of jumped on the crypto bandwagon.
How could they
Uh,
not? It's
yeah,
an opportunity to try to get people to pony up money
yeah,
so they can enhance their greed.
yeah. I mean, celebrities. I mean, and Steve, I could go on and on. So I don't know and I know you have to keep the time focused. But you mentioned Madeleine Albright as a celebrity. Very often you see people like Robert Kiyosaki,
Mm-hmm.
Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole sort of infrastructure of speakers
Yep.
who are, they're very charismatic and they have a very positive message. And the MLM folks love to bring them in and sort of rev up the crowd and get everybody excited,
Right.
um, and get everybody to forget that they're really not making any money. Um,
Yeah, or that the people on the stage are not selling the same products. They're getting a check with
yes.
from that. And that these billion-dollar companies, they really just figure out it's like a cost of doing business. So a couple $100 million fine from the FTC, but we made $1.5 billion. That's a good business decision.
Yep.
Except it's not, because it's causing harm and distrust, but people need to be held accountable. And I can tell you, we're all human beings, but if you're a celebrity and other celebrities are doing X, you kind of say, well, they're doing it, it must be okay,
Yep.
rather than, should I talk to my lawyer about this? And is there a dark side to this? Is there a shadow side to this? Let me find out before I attach my good name, and not just say, "Oh, they're offering me $1 million for a 60-minute talk."
Well,
Sounds like
it
a good.
worked for Keith Raniere, who brought in the Dalai Lama to talk with his Nexium people.
I'm really glad you reminded me of that. Again, it's subverting people's trust by utilizing famous, influential people who do good work on the planet, but they're hawking
Yeah.
this thing or they're getting a photo taken. And I hear from people that I've counseled, how come the mayor of Los Angeles gave a proclamation for L. Ron Hubbard? And I'm like, you have to understand, donation, donation, donation. Get a picture. And a lot of these cults will say, Mayor, we want to give you an award for your good work first, as a
Yeah.
warm up setup, before they ask for the picture and the proclamation as a reciprocal thing. As we wrap up, Douglas, any last thoughts that you want to share with our listeners? We're going to do a blog on freedomofmind.com featuring the video of this, and we're going to add links. But any last thoughts you'd like to share?
I, I, I can only say, if you have been victimized by one of these companies, or if you have a friend or a loved one who has been, it's really, really important to speak up. And we talked about this public comment period, that's over, but it's always an option. You can always file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission. with your state attorney general, especially with your congressman. Politicians need to hear from real people about the real harm that they are suffering. So I can't urge you enough. And it's nowadays it's so easy. Every congressman has a website. You can go to the website. They're going to have a page where you can write a your story and then
Yeah.
submit it, and you're done. You don't have to pay postage. You don't have to write, type up something the way we used to have to do it.
Yeah.
It's,
They
it's,
want to hear from constituents, though. So look up
yeah,
who your congresspeople and senators are,
yes,
and that's the way to go. I actually met with my congressman who took over for Barney Frank, Jake Auchincloss. Took me a while to get an appointment, but sat with him for half an hour and you know, introduced myself and my work.
yeah,
It's doable. You may need to make multiple efforts, but make the effort.
yeah.
Democracy only works if we are citizens and we care to make America better. So I want to thank you for being you. Thank you for doing so much pro bono work over the decades, helping people because it was the right thing to do. And I really want to call out the hashtag I got out as a if you are a former victim of any type of mind control cult or MLM, um, share your story if you're willing to. If you don't want to, don't. But if you want to contribute, let's destigmatize the fact that we're humans. We can be co-opted. Our minds can get hacked, but then there's life after cult involvement.
Absolutely. Steve, thank you so much for having me on, and I look forward to talking with you
Yeah,
further.
we'll talk again, and I'm looking forward to being a part of this conference that you're organizing. So thanks again.
Thanks.
Okay.